penalties, possible appeals, and turtles on the racetrack. And is this enough to win an appeal? We got a lot packed into this episode, following the Roval.
3, 2, 1.
What's up, everyone? Hope everybody out there is off to a great Monday. The Roval, man, it did not fail to deliver, and also delivered some heartbreak, especially for one team, that being Alex Bowman and the 48 team, which failed post-race inspection, the car coming across the scales underweight. We're going to take a look at all this here today. We're going to take a look at some stop frame of the incident that's coming into question, of where he could possibly lose weight. We're also going to take a look at some of the drivers' reactions, the people who are making their input on this this case right here, and also an appeals process. At the point of taping this right now, it has not been announced if there's going to be an appeal. We're going to take a look at what would happen if there was an appeal, and especially if the 48 team was able to win that appeal. But now, let's just get into this right now really quick right here. Let's take a look at this action. And as you can see, that 48 car coming in there and getting really, really hard onto that bump and making some significant impact there with the bottom of that car. Now, this is where the question is coming in, as if this is something that could have dislodged something in the car to cause it to fall off. But Toby Christie caught up with him after the race, and this was very interesting right here to hear this come out of Alex.
I didn't crash, and that's the hardest I've ever hit anything in my life. So
Alex saying this was obviously a very hard impact, and obviously something that could have dislodged something in the car or broke something, causing it to come off from it. But now let's take a look now at the in-car camera from Michael McDowell at speed, and you can see just how hard this 48 car did hit it, and the implications that happened with that right there. But this is where I want to really jump into this, because we can take a look at this right here, and this is frame by frame, slow motion. And if you take a look, you can follow the arrow, and you can see debris hitting the front of the car right here. So obviously something did dislodge from the car right there and come off from it. And also want to take a look at this one right here, and I want you to pay attention to the air. As the arrow points out, you will see debris flying by the windshield of the car. And so once again, obviously something did come off of this car at this point. This is the big question. What was it? Which again, we're going to get more into that here in just a moment. But I also want to include this right here, because I found this very interesting. And this was Denny Haleman, which Denny a lot of times does not side with NASCAR, especially with everything that's taking place right now with lawsuits going on. But just in general, you don't see Denny siding with them. But Denny had this to say about the entire situation.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how it could lose significant weight. I mean, I know there's a way. I just don't know how or why. And so, and the problem is I just don't think NASCAR cares. That's why they give you that buffer. It's just like speeding on pit road. You know, if you speed on pit road, you weren't 0.3 miles per hour over the speed limit. You were 5.3 miles per hour over the speed limit. That's why they give you that buffer. They don't expect you to take that. They're allowing for things to happen on the racetrack that could alter the weight of your car.
So Denny's saying that NASCAR does give you leeway in so many ways. And this is what's really interesting about this. And now we're going to hear from NASCAR executive here about what actually took place and the disqualification.
Fortunately, the 48 had an issue, did not meet minimum weight, so we put the car to the side. We continue on. We let the team fuel the car. They felt they were low on fuel. Never mind that. We give them the opportunity to fuel the car, as well as purge the water system and add water. So we give them every opportunity to make minimum weight. We run them back through. Unfortunately, they were light again. They are allowed a 5% weight break, which is for usage of fluids and so on. That's about 17 pounds. We back the car back off the scales, run it back on, and then unfortunately it was the same weight. So the car had a weight issue. All the other cars cleared inspection. 48 in, and that ends up in a disqualification.
So as you can see, there is some variance there of levels that they could tweak and get by with and everything else. Obviously, this right here, they did everything, every protocol to possibly get this car through scales with weight, but did not work and did not happen. So, and you got to take a look at this right here, which I'm going to get to. But this brings us to the appeals process right now to see what's going to happen with this. At the time of taping this, Hendrick Motorsports had not said what they were going to appeal. They just put out this little brief statement. But this was very interesting to me. And again, this is Toby Christie catching up with Alex Bowman.
Just how I was following I think it was the one and somebody else, I just couldn't see. And I thought I was okay, and clearly I was just too far left when I kind of launched over that. So my mistake caused that for sure.
So Bowman saying that this was no doubt his fault with this situation right here, which I can't blame him with the situations that were taking place with this. But this is going to be interesting now, because now this brings to the appeals process of what would happen. Obviously, right now, Joey Logano has been moved into the round of 8, advancing and the 48 team out of it. But this appeal process, they're saying it would be a very fast-lived appeals process, not dragging out like it does a lot of times. But we got to take a look now, because what could happen if they do win an appeal, and the situation would be what fell off the car. Now, if this was weight, a weight ballast like this, that would, in fact, probably give a good point of appeal right there. But it's going to have implications for the team, which would be a full race suspension for the crew chief, car chief, and head engineer for the race team. But with that, there's no points penalty or anything like that. So it'd be very interesting to see if they did win an appeal like this, what would happen if they'd give them that spot back. Because again, this is 17 pounds that they're playing around with here. So it's going to be interesting to see what variance. I mean, it could have been 2 or 3 pounds that fell off that car that caused this to go outside of that weight variance there. So something that's going to be very interesting to see what happens. And man, I guarantee you Joey Logano is just sitting there really chomping at the bit to get some answers as well. But now let's talk about these turtles there, because man, I'm going to tell you, these things work pretty hard on these cars. You can take a look at this right here of Bubba Wallace, and you can see how airborne this car got. And then following that, you know, Martin Truex went out there and said, man, it wasn't fun.
Feels like you get a concussion every lap, basically, if you hit them. So, yeah, not much fun.
So Truex saying basically it felt like you were getting a concussion every time you hit. So with that being said, you know that hit right there with Alex Bowman had to be a pretty hard impact as well. But what's interesting about this is Kyle Busch went on to back up Martin Truex Jr.
Glad somebody said it. It is.
Do you think NASCAR can fix that overnight or something?
No.
Now, when he was asked whether or not he thought NASCAR would do something about it, obviously you got his answer right there. But in fact, NASCAR did do something about this. They went and took out the 4-inch turtles and replaced them with 2.5-inch turtles. And man, I'm going to tell you, on Saturday, I went down there to video a little bit right at this area. I really hadn't planned on videoing anything up there this weekend. I was just kind of go hang out. But seeing this, I brought out my old camera and took some video. Unfortunately, I didn't have any good camera with me. But you could see how hard these things were, how they were just setting these cars off in this area right here. I got to give a big shout out to the 44 team Alpha Prime for letting me get in the pit box and get these shots here with them. But man, that was really a pretty wild sight to see. Now, this brings me back to the race on Sunday with penalties. Even after changing these things, there was a lot of question with what was going to happen with this right here. And you can take a look at what was said in the drivers' meeting right here. But even with everything going on, some of the drivers still had questions about what was actually going to transpire, what was legal and what wasn't. But obviously, Bubba Wallace being served a penalty during the race for cutting the corner. And it didn't take long for people to jump on to say that the 24 car did the exact same thing, but did not serve a penalty for this situation. So, again, right there, 24, Hendrick Motorsports getting by with one thing, but unfortunately for the 48 team, not getting by with the situation with the weight. But a lot of things to come into question this week about what's going to happen with this. And again, man, I would hate to be Alex Bowman or Joey Logano right now, just sitting there wondering whether you're going to advance or whether the year is over as far as the championship run. But this brings me to NASCAR right here. And this one of the things I want to talk about is just, you know, on Saturday. the other 48 with not being able to get that win, with the late caution coming out. You know, there's been so many questionable calls by NASCAR recently and this year, especially when it comes to penalties and cautions like this. And I said this after Indy, the way they waited so long before throwing a caution with that. And I paid reference to Ryan Blaney in the 12. And when this happened, pretty similar situation to what happened to Parker Kligerman here last year, a couple years ago. So just interesting how these different things are happening. But NASCAR has also come under scrutiny with the towback policy. Some NASCAR making the decision just to tow some of these cars to the garage, basically eliminating them from the race. Other ones, they're taking the pit road to let them work on them. So that, you know, they made some changes at Talladega to try to help with this, but still, for an average fan coming into the sport, it's got to be really questionable of what's going on, what's real, what's legal, what's not, why some people are able to get by with things. And then also, you go back to Talladega with the roof rail. The roof rail was added to help the cars stay on the ground. First race with it, there was no testing, no practice with it, which helped RFK because RFK was the only two cars out of the field that their roof rail failed and come off. The studs, the bolts holding it on were still there and everything else, but the piece of roof rail was gone itself. So this has brought up a lot of questions of why there was no penalty there, because obviously, if you can get by with some things that can start out the race but not finish the race, that opens up doors for these guys to get in there and start getting creative in different ways. So it was interesting to see nothing happen with that. But now, again, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Bowman because, again, if you got something that fell off the car, I mean, obviously you can't make many changes to these cars. So if something did fall off the car and they can blame it on these bumps, would that be something that somebody else would start doing on the road courses? Would this be something NASCAR start paying a little more attention to penalize people prior to a race? But anyways, I always want your thoughts on this. And I got to say a big thanks to Joey Gase Motorsports. Joey, he hooked me up this weekend, and I appreciate that. Enjoyed being down in the pits with them. Unfortunately, a bad weekend for them. And also my friends over there at Alpha Prime, able to get right in there, man, and get right in the pit box and get some great footage of these guys. And I love to see these guys working like this. And also this right here of Joey Gase, because, man, this is a throwback to the old owners, the old owner drivers right here. You can see right here, putting on the gloves after everything to get to work on his own race car. And, man, that is admirable to me. And that's hands-on. That's hands-on work right there. But anyways, what do you think about all the deal with this weekend? What do you think is going to be the outcome? Throw them comments down below. Talk about everything to do with the Roval. And, man, as always, I hope you're having a great week. Got more coming for you this week. And, man, we'll see you at the checkered flag.